time, baby! The Washington Commanders and the Philadelphia Eagles make a trade. Jahan Dotson is an Eagle. We got a 5th-round pick, and we traded a 3rd and 2 7s for Jahan Dotson, who's going to be wide receiver 3 for us. Oh, sound the Super Bowl alarms, baby! Pump the brakes. Let's hold off just a moment here and really think about this just for 1 second, okay? I like the guy. I like the player. 2022 was drafted in the 1st round with the 16th pick, played 2 years in Washington, and basically gave you 520 yards a pop. Rookie year, he had 7 tutties. His sophomore year last season, he had 4 touchdowns on 49 catches. So you're getting a quality player. He's certainly not a bum. You got him at a 5th-round pick from Washington. And in exchange, you traded a 3rd-round pick, and you gave Washington 2 7th-round picks. Now, I guess the way I'm going to probably break this trade down a little bit, or at least give my opinion on it, is I'll give you the good about it, and I'll give you my skepticism about it, okay? And I think once we kind of look at both sides of the coin here, we can come up with an overall opinion about it, right? So I know for me, wide receiver 3 has been an issue for Philadelphia, and a lot of the fans and a lot of people in the media who cover Philadelphia has been clamoring for a 3rd wide receiver. That's why the noise about, Johnny Wilson in camp and, Anaya Smith sucking was such a big deal, and Britton Covey playing really well in camp, and how Paris Campbell, who we brought in as a veteran, didn't pan out so much thus far, and it's such a question mark for us. And it's like, we're like, well, damn, who's going to be wide receiver 3? Because last season it was a disaster, and that's because the offense was a disaster, right? Wide receiver 3 is an important thing to fulfill in the offense because that's probably the biggest question mark, that and right guard. But you know what? Mekhi Becton's playing right guard, but that's neither here nor there. This is about wide receiver 3. So Philadelphia looked at it and said, you know what? We need to get a sure thing here at wide receiver 3. They looked outside the organization. Anaya Smith didn't pan out thus far. Johnny Wilson's concussed. Britton Covey's too small. Paris Campbell might be a little bit long in the tooth at the moment. So, we need to get somebody who can come in and just be productive and just be reliable. So, they trade for Jahan Dotson, who, again, young guy, physically, runs 4.4. He's got the physical ability to be a really damn good receiver in the NFL. When the Commanders drafted him in 22, I was a little perplexed at how high they drafted him, but I'm like, you know what? The guy can play. He's definitely not a bum. So, and when you paired him with Terry McLaurin, you're like, okay, Washington's got a little something at wide receiver. And you're like, solid pick for them. And the good thing about the trade here is that, one, it solidifies wide receiver 3, which is an important deal. But it also means that for the next couple of years, at minimum, you have him for under, over the next 2 years, he makes $5 million basically because of the contract that he's on. So he's not making a lot of money, and you're putting him in a position where he's close to home. He's a Penn State kid, or he went to high school in New Jersey or something like that. So he's a hometown kid, right? You're closer to family and all that stuff, which is important. And he's not going to be asked to be the second best wide receiver or the number 1 wide receiver in Philadelphia because you got Smitty and you got AJ and you got Dallas Goedert and you got Saquon Barkley. So all we're asking this kid to do is to just come in, and when your name is called to catch a football, don't be Jalen Reagor. Don't be Quez Watkins. Just be able to catch a football. Okay? That's all I'm asking for. That's all we're asking for. And I think Jahan Dotson, at minimum, at worst, can provide you that. He certainly can do that. And especially, we've seen flashes of this guy making big plays in the NFL. We've seen big nights from the guy. So physically, he's got all the tools in the bag. On the other hand, though, this guy's got a little bit of a question mark, if you don't mind me saying, because it's an interstate division trade. And I don't know about you, I'm a little skeptical about interdivision trades. Okay? What is Washington planning here? What is Philadelphia? Why did we pay such a high price for a guy like Jahan Dotson? a guy that they were going to cut, by the way. So why did we go after him so covetedly, right? Like why was he such a hot commodity for us? We're going to get into that in just a moment. But before we do that, let me introduce myself as we're at that point in the show. This is the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. I am your host, Asif Badi, and I am a fan just like you. I'm not a reporter, an analyst, an insider. I am none of those things. I react to the news just as you do, okay? And I am a fan who wants to see Philadelphia prosper and see this team succeed and hoist Lombardi Trophy. So I offer my opinions on whether or not they are able to do that, whether they're in the process of doing that, and what I think they can do to go ahead and achieve that. And you can disagree or agree with me if you want in the comment section below. That's the whole point of the show, creating a dialogue. But the only thing I'm going to ask of you, if you're going to do this thing, is to not only engage with me in the comment section below, but to hit the subscribe button and hit the like button, the thumbs up button, because it'll help me get out to all other Eagle fans out there who want to consume content of the birds in the midnight green. And one thing I'm going to tell you, it doesn't cost you a damn thing. I'm not asking for money. Just hit that big red button, and it helps me grow organically, because that's what we're trying to do here, okay? If I can get across to all other Eagle fans, I'd really, really be appreciative of all of you. So, namaste. Thank you very much. Let's talk about this negative side of the Jahan Dotson trade, okay? Like I said, all the good stuff about him. Physically talented, young guy, hometown kid. Played with played at Penn State, I think, with Barkley and all that. So Barkley knows him, so, played at Penn State, all that stuff. And here's the thing. Washington drafted him in the first round 2 years ago and were willing to just accept 2 7th-round picks and a 3rd-round pick to get the guy out the door. They're saying to themselves, we got a rookie quarterback. We got him a veteran running back. And listen, when you're with a rookie quarterback, the idea is that you want to load up as many talented players on the outside or around that young quarterback as much as you can to kind of cocoon him and help him develop quicker, see the game faster with talent on the outside, right? That's what they're doing in Chicago. That's what you do in San Francisco. That's what we did in Philadelphia, right? You want to do that with every team that you're on. CJ Stroud, they're doing that in Houston. They did it with Joe Burrow, right? You surround your young quarterback with talent, and hopefully he can grow and mold himself into being an upper echelon QB. That's the goal. Washington is in a rebuilding mode where they have a rookie quarterback. They have excitement. They drafted and have all this talent around the guy. But they were willing to let Jahan Dotson go. Not only just go, but go to a division rival in Philadelphia. To me, it seems a little fishy. Now, listen, this trade addresses needs for both teams, relatively. We get a wide receiver 3 that's relatively established, that's not a bum, and a guy who, in case A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith, God forbid, get hurt on the outside, a guy that can come in and provide an outside depth receiver, okay? A guy who's been successful in the NFL and had splash plays. So in that sense, I understand it. And he's cheap. Like, he's inexpensive. However, for those of you who don't know, I am a fan of Jacob Sports, and that's what I use to kind of get my my day-to-day Eagles talk. And one of the reporters talked about how once they got Jahan Dotson, one of the writers in Washington texted this, saying the guy is a good route runner. However, he was called Mopey and has a total lack of physicality in his game. And that's the problem with Jahan Dotson. So basically what that told me is this dude, he's labeled as soft. Washington reporters are labeling this guy as soft. Now, I don't know about you, but if you're any athlete, in any capacity, on any level, one of the worst things you could be called basically is soft. a total lack of physicality, and can be mopey. Mopey? Well, damn! That's a grown-ass man being called mopey. You're an NFL player saying you have a lack of physicality. Now, listen. I get Washington had higher expectations for the player. And in Philadelphia, he's not going to be asked to do these types of things. Okay, he's not going to be asked to be the number 2 wide receiver. However, being called soft and mopey doesn't really sit well with me, especially if you paid a 3rd-round pick for the guy. It doesn't really sit well with me as an offensive player in a city like Philadelphia, where we do want players who are tough, who are rough rider. I guess to quote Stephen A. Smith, rough riders. We want the rough riders in Philadelphia. That's what we want. That's my Stephen A. impression, by the way. Don't judge. He is spectacular on TV as an entertainer. Sucks as anything else, but that's neither here nor there. Listen. Philadelphia got this player. It's a good move. I like it. It helps the offense out. That's for damn sure. No doubt about it. However, Washington was very flippant on getting rid of him. They were very nonchalant about it. They're like, yeah, take him. We were going to cut him anyway. We'll take a 3rd-round pick for the guy. 2 7s. We don't mind. Now, my question is, first of all, Howie Roseman, I know you're going all in on this offense and you're hoping to outscore people and get all these big plays and all that stuff. Getting Jahan Dotson to me kind of shows your hand that you're going to say, you know what, we're going to throw the ball all over the fucking field. We want Kellen Moore to come and call this offense and be a freaking rain show. Forget running the ball as much, because I don't think we're going to be doing that as much now that we have a wide receiver 3 and you have Calcaterra, who had a great camp. You have Dallas Goedert. You got Smitty. You got AJ. You got Barkley. You got Gainwell, who's receiving catches out of the backfield. We're going to be throwing the ball a lot. Which leads me to my point here about this defense. We got a young defense here in Philadelphia. And look, there's talent here. And it's a work in progress. Mitchell's young. DeJean's young. Ringo, Roger. I mean, we got some young players here. Jalen Hunt, Carter, Davis, Nolan Smith, Bryce Huff, Nakobe Dean, Trotter. Whether or not they see the field is a whole other discussion. Reed Blankenship, Sidney Brown, Trace McCollum, right? Chauncey Gardner. There's some young players on this defense. And it's going to take time for them to develop. Now, if any of you watch football or played football, what's the one thing you could do to help a defense out that's struggling or that's growing, that's young? Limit the reps in terms of exposing them to great quarterbacks. And how do you do that? Control time of possession, run the ball, low turnovers. Those are the things you got to do to help a young defense grow and mature. Getting Jahan Dotson, a player as talented as him, and putting all this investment on the offensive side of the ball, to me, it doesn't necessarily scream like, yeah, we're going to really just control the clock. We're going to make sure that we keep our turnovers low. Not that they're looking to turn the ball over, but you get my point. We're putting the ball in the air is my point. Too many weapons on this offense not to give them the ball, right? We bought in Saquon Barkley to be not only a bell cow back, but to be a guy that you could trust in the passing game. Gainwell, played receiver in college, is a guy who can catch the ball out of the backfield. You got Dallas Goedert. Grant Calcaterra, like I said, had a great camp. We put all this investment on the offensive side of the ball, but yet we have so many question marks on defense. And I'm looking at Howie Roseman, and I'm asking myself, hey, Howie Roseman, Howie season, what are we doing to address the questions on the side of the ball that actually is going to dictate whether or not we can hoist the Lombardi Trophy? Say what you want about the NFL nowadays, how it's a passing league and you got to put up offensive points. No doubt about it. But in the end, in the playoffs, there's always constants. You got to control the clock, You got to run the ball, low turnovers, and your defense has to show up and play ball. And quite frankly, we don't have the equity. This organization does not have the equity to sit there and justify what they've done on defense in free agency, in trade acquisition, and all that. To sit there and say, we're good on defense right now. We'll wait and see. You can't tell me that. And getting Jahan Dotson for a third round, trading the third round pick for Jahan Dotson to just overload a strength of your team, to me, is a little short-sighted. You could have used that third-round pick to maybe get a quality player down the road by trade deadline. Maybe you could have packaged that deal for, an edge rusher. Maybe use that to get a safety that's not happy with the situation in the NFL. Maybe get a linebacker on a team. Maybe the Saints don't have a great year to start off with, and you look at Pat Warner and you're like, that's a linebacker we can use. Give him a third-round pick for that player. But no, we're addressing the offensive side of the ball. A side of the ball that we're not concerned about. I'm not concerned about this offense. I'm more worried about this unproven defense. I'm worried about whether or not Bryce Huff is going to be able to play all 4 downs. Whether Nolan Smith is going to be able to keep up. Whether or not Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter together can last the season and give you productive football. I'm worried about this linebacking core because we have no linebackers that are quality. Maybe Jeremiah Trotter is a player. Who knows? It's a rookie year. Nakobe Dean, he's got to prove it. Devin White, as much as I like the physical ability of him and I like the acquisition, you're taking a chance. You can't pair that with a guy like Zach Bond, who you're also taking a chance on, who's played on the outside linebacker, and you have him thrusted inside. And then you got Van Sumeren or whatever, Braden Smith. And then on the back end, you still have Bradbury for some reason. You have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who hurt his shoulder recently. I know he's come back and he's on the field and all that stuff, but injury concern. Darius Slay is long in the tooth or is getting older. Isaiah Rodgers, 1-year deal, hasn't played. I like him. I think he's going to be able to be a good player, and I like the back end, basically, of the secondary in Philadelphia, but unproven commodities. And that's what we want to roll out with this offense. An offense that we all believe is going to put up points. But Howie Roseman is saying, fuck the defense for now. Go all in on this offense because that's what's going to win us a Super Bowl. No. You need to have a respectable defense. And this Jahan Dotson trade, again, helps a need in the short term, but it does not address anything about this team in this upcoming season. Does this trade move the needle for you? It shouldn't. Because all the questions that we have from the 23 season going into this season are still unanswered. You can hate me all you want. You can hate that comment all you want, but it's valid. This defense is the biggest question mark of the year for the Philadelphia Eagles. And just having Vic Fangio and young players who you drafted are not the answer. You need some players here who can play. And these guys, they haven't proven it yet. Howie Roseman has not showed that he could be a superstar drafter on the defensive side of the ball. Look back at the draft history of Howie Roseman. He's had some pretty good drafts, no doubt about it. But you can't tell me a superstar player on the defensive side of the ball outside of Jalen Carter, who's a top 10 pick. Quinyon Mitchell's still a question. Cooper DeJean, question mark. Trotter, question mark. Jordan Davis, question mark. Nakobe Dean, question mark. Nolan Smith, question mark. Sidney Brown, question mark. Reed Blankenship, question mark. Bryce Huff, question mark. That's just the reality. And we've done nothing on that side of the ball. Bringing in a player, trading for a player, looking at free agents who can at least help with the linebacking unit, bringing in an edge. Nothing. But we attack wide receiver 3 and overpay for a guy that Washington was going to cut for draft compensation, who they're probably going to use that to turn around and maybe trade for a guy like Brandon Ayuk, maybe for a guy like a T. Higgins. And if they don't go ahead and do that, did we win the trade all of a sudden? No. Look, I know I just went on this diatribe about the trade. And I'm not trying to poo-poo the acquisition because I think it's a solid acquisition, at least in the short term. But it does not move the needle for Philadelphia. It doesn't change whether or not we go from winning the NFC East to potentially being the number 1 seed in the NFC. It doesn't. Detroit's still better. San Francisco's still better. Green Bay, at least on paper, is still better because of the quarterback play and the offensive play caller and all that stuff. Chicago's is going to be a team that's going to have something to say. I think we're better than them, but that's not the point here. Atlanta's going to have something to say. Dallas, you can't tell me that they're not going to win 10 games. Say what you want about Dak Prescott. He lights up Philadelphia every time he plays them, no matter who's out there. Jaden Daniels, if he hits, the Washington Commanders are going to be a team that's going to be viable. We split with the Giants last season. So don't give me this notion that all of a sudden we're a lock to win not only the NFC East, but the NFC. You got to go out there and prove it. Now, I believe in our team. I believe in this offense. And you know what? Going all in on this offense kind of maybe it solidifies the NFC East. And at least we say on paper, okay, no team's going to drop 30 a night and outscore us. If you want to get into a shooting match with us, good luck. I get that philosophy. But, man, oh, man, to do nothing on defense, to me, is a little worrisome. And the fact that Washington was just willing to just give Jahan Dotson away, they were going to cut him, and we overpaid. To me, something smells fishy with that. And when you're labeled as soft and mopey and have a lack of physicality, that doesn't sit well with me in the city of Philadelphia. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But does this really impact Philadelphia for this season? Maybe marginally. Maybe marginally is what it does. But it doesn't change any questions that we have going into the year. And Howie Roseman and all the other Eagle fans who are excited about this acquisition, I would just tell you and just remind you, pump the brakes. Because we had talent last season, and at the end of the year, we looked worse than the Carolina Panthers. And you could tell me, oh, it was, the play calling and all that stuff. Well, you know what? This team has to prove it. Has to go out there and prove it. And until we do anything otherwise, we cannot sit here and talk about Super Bowl. And this Jahan Dotson move doesn't guarantee us that. So we'll just have to wait and see. But one thing's for damn sure. This trade better work out. Because Howie Roseman's going to get some damn hellfire. Because you've done nothing to address the biggest holes on your defense. That's the biggest hole in your team. I have faith in Jalen Hurts. I have faith in Kellen Moore. I have faith in the offensive ability to score points. We did it last season. That wasn't the freaking problem. This defense is the problem. And giving a third-round pick for a guy that Washington was willing to just cut, to me, with my big-ass nose, it smells fishy. Hey, thank you so much for watching the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. If you want to continue to support the channel, please hit the like and subscribe button down below. Also, check us out on Instagram and TikTok at Riding the Bench Eagles Pod. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, you name it, we're on there. Thank you so much for listening, and please join us next time here at the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast.